The First Council of Lyons was called by Innocent IV in 1245 to deal with the ever-increasing political unrest between the papacy and the Holy Roman Empire. Innocent's predecessor had tried to call a council, but had been prevented by Emperor Frederick II. Innocent had managed to escape to Lyons, which was not under the control of the emperor. Many participants from the empire and elsewhere were prohibited from attending because of Frederick II's prohibitions. Therefore, the main participants of the council were the English, the French, the Italians, and perhaps the Spanish. Frederick II sent a legation, and the Latin Emperor of Constantinople were also there. The council dealt mainly with the deposition of Frederick II and other legal matters rather than defining doctrine or combating heretics.
Papal bull deposing Emperor Frederick II. Furthermore, this privilege which our Lord Jesus Christ handed to Peter, and in him to his successors. Namely, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven, in which assuredly consists the authority and the power of the Roman Church. He did his best to diminish or take away from the Church itself, writing that he did not fear Pope Gregory's condemnations. For not only by despising the keys of the Church, he did not observe the sentence of excommunication pronounced against him, but also by himself and his officials, he prevented others from observing that, and other sentences of excommunication and interdict, which he altogether set at naught. Also, without fear, he seized territories of the said Roman Church, namely the Marches, the Duchy, Benevento, the walls and towers of which he has caused to be demolished. We denounce the said prince, who has made himself so unworthy of the empire and kingdoms, and every honor and dignity, and who also, because of his crimes, has been cast out by God from kingdom and empire. We mark him out as bound by his sins, an outcast, and deprived by our Lord of every honor and dignity, and we deprive him of them by our sentence. We absolve from their oath forever all those who are bound to him by an oath of loyalty, firmly forbidding by our apostolic authority anyone in the future to obey or heed him as emperor or king, and decreeing that anyone who henceforth offers advice, help, or favor to him as to an emperor or king automatically incurs excommunication. Let those whose task it is to choose an emperor in the same empire freely choose a successor to him. Constitution 3. Curtailing legal expenses. As we wish, to the best of our power, to curtail the expenses of lawsuits by shortening the legal process, extending the decree of Innocent III of happy memory on this matter, we decree that, if anyone wishes to bring several personal claims against another, he must be careful to gain letters on all these claims to the same judges and not to different ones. If anyone acts contrary to this, his letters and the processes initiated by them are to lack all validity. Constitution 5. Only unconditional votes are valid. In elections, postulations, and ballots, from which the right of election arises, we completely disapprove of conditional, alternative, and indefinite votes, and we decree that the said votes are to be held invalid, and that the election is to be determined by unconditional votes. For the power of decision of those who do not express a clear opinion is transferred to the others. Constitution 15. On judges who give dishonest judgment. If any ecclesiastical judge, whether ordinary or delegated, careless of his reputation and seeking his own honor, acts against his conscience and justice in any way to the injury of one party in his judgment, whether from favor or from base motives, let him know that he is suspended from the exercise of his office for a year, and he is to be condemned to pay to the injured party the damages incurred. Further, let him know that if during the period of his suspension he sacrilegiously takes part in the sacred rites of the Church, he is caught in the noose of irregularity, according to the canonical sanctions, from which he can be freed only by the Apostolic See, saving the other constitutions, which assign and inflict punishment on judges who give dishonest judgment. Constitution 19. On excommunication. Since the aim of excommunication is healing and not death, correction and not destruction, as long as the one against whom it is pronounced does not treat it with contempt, let an ecclesiastical judge proceed with caution, so that, in pronouncing it, he may be seen as one who acts with a correcting and healing hand. Whoever pronounces an excommunication, therefore, should do this in writing and should write down expressly the reason why the excommunication was pronounced. He is bound to hand over a copy of this written document to the one excommunicated within a month after the date of sentence, if requested to do so. As to this request, we wish a public document to be drawn up or testimonial letters to be furnished, sealed with an official seal. If any judge rashly violates this constitution, let him know that he is suspended for 1 month from entering a church or attending divine services. Part 2. Constitution 1. Management of church debts. Our pastoral care incites and urges us to look to the interest of those churches which have fallen into debt, and to provide by a salutary constitution that this should not happen for the future. For this reason, so that they may not be able for the future to excuse themselves for an inefficient administration and to throw the blame on their predecessors and others, we lay down the following rules with the approval of the present council. Bishops, abbots, deans, and others who exercise a lawful and common administration within 1 month after they have assumed office, having first informed their immediate superior, so he may be present either in person or through some suitable and faithful ecclesiastical person in the presence of the chapter or convent, especially summoned for this purpose, must see that an inventory is made of the goods that belong to the administration they have taken up. Moreover, a transcript of this inventory is to be given to both the new incumbent and the prelate summoned for the above purpose, and is to be similarly sealed. Existing goods are to be carefully guarded, their administration carried out in a worthy manner, and the debts which have been found are to be speedily paid, if possible, from the movable possessions of the Church. If evident necessity and the reasonable advantage of their churches should persuade them, then prelates, with the advice and consent of their superiors, and archbishops and exempt abbots, with the advice and consent of those already mentioned, and of their chapter, may contract debts, which, if possible, are not usurious and which are never in fairs or public markets. The names of the debtors and creditors, and the reason why the debt was contracted, are to be included in the written contract, even if it is turned to the advantage of the Church, and for this purpose we wish that in no way ecclesiastical persons or churches should be given as security. We consider that we must lay down by an inviolable decree that all abbots and priors, as well as deans and those in charge of cathedrals or other churches, at least once a year, in their chapters, should render a strict account of their administration, and a written and sealed account should be faithfully read out in the presence of the visiting superior. Likewise, archbishops and bishops are to take care each year to make known to their chapters, with due fidelity, the state of administration of the goods belonging to their households, and bishops to their metropolitans, and metropolitans to the legates of the Apostolic See, or to others to whom the visitation of their churches has been assigned by the same see. Part 2. Constitution 22, on help for the Empire of Constantinople. Though we are engaged in difficult matters and distracted by manifold anxieties, yet among those things which demand our constant attention is the liberation of the Empire of Constantinople. This we desire with our whole heart. This is ever the object of our thoughts. Thus, not without cause, we are troubled with grief. But because the body of the Church would be shamefully deformed by the lack of a loved member, namely the aforesaid empire, and be sadly weakened and suffer loss, and because it could rightly be assigned to our sloth and that of the Church, if it were deprived of the support of the faithful and left to be freely oppressed by its enemies, we firmly propose to come to the help of the empire with swift and effective aid. Indeed, so that the help to the empire may be speedy and useful, we decree, with the general approval of the council, that half of all incomes of dignities, parsonages, and ecclesiastical prebends, and of other benefices of ecclesiastics, who do not personally reside in them for at least 6 months, whether they hold one or more, shall be assigned in full for 3 years to the help of the said empire, having been collected by those designated by the Apostolic See. Part 2. Constitution 4, on the Tartars. Indeed, the wicked race of the Tartars, seeking to subdue or rather utterly destroy the Christian people, having gathered for a long time past the strength of all their tribes, have entered Poland, Russia, Hungary, and other Christian countries. So savage has been their devastation that their sword spared neither sex nor age, but raged with fearful brutality upon all alike. Therefore, on the advice of the Holy Council, we advise, beg, urge, and earnestly command all of you, as far as you can, carefully to observe the route and approaches by which this people can enter our land, and by ditches, walls, or other defenses and fortifications, as you think fitting, to keep them at bay, so that their approach to you may not easily be open.